Good evening. This is Frank Sakria, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes about how Donald John Trump has had his best week as president of the United States. Don't hit me! Don't hit me! Don't hit me! Alrighty. Alright. He'll never have another better 5 minutes. Okay? Unless he wins real. Don't hit me! Like and subscribe. I'm going to give you 5 minutes about how he's had his best week as president of the United States. Alrighty. So we're going to start with the easy stuff. He got his nominee through the Supreme Court, which sounded incredibly not going to happen 2 weeks ago, and I've got a whole other video on it. But he got through, and it got through a lot of different ways, and one of them, which I didn't put in the other video, was how some of our friends in the liberal media learned how to attack on Kellyanne Conway for saying, I'm a survivor of sexual assault, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I disagree with Justice Kavanaugh and that they don't necessarily want to tell you what happened in my story. And when Mrs. Morning Joe, or the future Mrs. Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski, whatever she's going to take his name, I don't know. But when she went on the militant attack and be like, you need to say who it was and you're not, and that was like, again, losing the moral standard. And you know what? Donald John Trump got his person in. But why is it his best week ever? Well, let's turn the clock back to Sunday, and he put out a tweet, because that's what our president does, and says the next day, a great trade agreement is going to be through. And then what was that great trade agreement? The United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. You can call it NAFTA 2, NAFTA 2, Electric Boogaloo, Super NAFTA. I call it Usmaka, which I think is also the name of the three-eyed raven in Game of Thrones. And by the way, why do we have to wait till April for another Game of Thrones? I mean, seriously, I want my incest war going through, because you have Team Incest with the Lannisters and Team Incest between nephew King of the North and the Khaleesi, the Breaker of Chains. It's two incests versus their nephew or something from the White Walkers. I'm just saying, why do I gotta wait till April? Come on, HBO, let's get her done. Okay, we're gonna have another Marvel movie that may or may not tell us about the snap before we get a resolution on Game of Thrones. Damn you, George R.R. Martin. Whatever. Okay, back to the story. So, Usmaka is going to go through. Well, probably, right? The Democrats have no moral high ground to vote against it, in that it's a modernization of NAFTA. And when it was passed 25 years ago, in the line Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis was really cool, coming from Biggie Smalls. You didn't have intellectual property issues anywhere near where they are today. There was no real internet. There's no Netscape, no Netflix. Wow, Netscape. Wow, Frank, I went with the oldest, shittiest browser that's no longer in existence. A lot of issues didn't go through. And if you are labor, you got a lot there, right? Mexicans have to be paid, I think, $17 an hour now to do cars. There's a lot of good out there. It's an expansion of NAFTA. And I'm a big fan of free trade. I love NAFTA. Okay? And I imagine it will easily pass the Senate, even if Democrats get a majority in the Senate. It's just that weird coalition of the anti-traders on the right and the socialists on the left. Do they get together and kill this? I don't know. We'll find out sometime next year. And, later on in the week, of course, we got Judge Kavanaugh, as I said. And his, the president's wife is over in Africa doing her thing over there. And it looks like everything's going well with that. New poll numbers are out. Looks like North Dakota is going to flip Republican. That'll probably eke out if a couple of states don't flip the other way. Florida, of course, is still competitive. Chances of the Democrats taking the Senate probably drop significantly. Partly because of the Kavanaugh hearings, partly because it's just a regression back to the mean, partly because the states the Democrats have to defend are mostly states that Trump won by a lot. And then, to put the icing on the cake, the jobs number came out on Friday. And as somebody who likes to spin, or somebody who has spin numbers, it's hard to spin the number negatively. So 3.7% unemployment is the lowest unemployment that we've had since September of 1969. Last time the unemployment rate was below this, the Mets had not won a World Series. Okay. Now, 3.7% does not mean that everybody between 16 and 65, and there's only 3.7% who don't have a job. People don't quite understand the numbers. It's basically everybody who has a job divided by, and that's actually not totally accurate. It's everybody has a normal job. It doesn't include strippers, drug, sidewalk pharmaceutical distributors, porn stars. They're not usually included in the number. I'm actually being serious on this number. Divided by all those people who have a job, not including porn stars, strippers, sidewalk pharmaceutical distributors, anybody in the gray economy, and people that are actively looking for a job. So if you haven't had a job for 20 years, and you haven't really, or you're just like, I give it up, you don't get counted. You also don't get counted if you're a full-time college student. So if you're 19, you lose your job, but you're a full-time college student, you just went from being employed to not a number. But the 3.7% is amazingly low, right? And then you throw out the employment number. So there was 120,000 new jobs, and that was actually under the 190 suggested estimate. But they revised the number twice, and the preliminary number is actually the second number, which preliminary, great government here. Preliminary means 2. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But when they took in the August revision and the July revision, it actually exceeded the 190,000 estimate. So if you are a Republican running for election, especially re-election, you are not going to hug Donald Trump. Okay, that's crazy unless you're in an incredibly red area. But what you are going to do is you're going to hug the numbers. And if you are, Carlos Cubrelo or Maria Salazar running for Ileana's open seat, or your Governor Scott running for president, or Governor Scott running for Senate, or if you're Ron DeSantis running for governor, you run on great numbers. Even if you didn't create them, or even if they're not entirely all of yours. I know people are going to say, well, Obama started, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Once you're in there for over a year, it's your party's numbers. And if you're someone like Rick Scott, you can say, the Florida number, that's all you. Yeah, maybe not all of you. Maybe it's other actions, whatever. You're going to run on it. And there's a regression back to the mean. It's probably the best chance that the president has to maintain the Senate or maybe grow it a little bit. And when I look at the 538 number, I think right now there's a 20% chance the Republicans keep the House. I think, depending on how bad the Kavanaugh dust settles, look, if the Democrats hold it by 5 seats, most of his legislation can at least go through. And more importantly, if the Democrats don't control both houses, if you're the president, you're not worried about impeachment. FBI can do whatever it wants on its investigation. At the end of the day, it's going to be, does Congress want to impeach and convict? And it's probably not going to happen with a Republican-controlled Senate and a barely Democratic-controlled House. So like and subscribe, or hate and comment. But I don't think the president gets another best week like this again, at least in the foreseeable future, unless of course another senator gets appointed somehow as a Republican, or if another Supreme Court justice retires and it's somebody gets to reappoint. But other than that, like and subscribe. See you around.